To be honest, when I think of root work, I think of the dentist, which might honestly be even scarier. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out our introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it's going to give you a pretty good overview of what we do here at the Horror Movie Syllabus, which, in short, is look at a particular subgenre of horror and then pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But that's not what we're doing today. Today is our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series. This is where I take a recommendation from you guys, a horror movie that I've never seen before that you recommend in the comments to one of my videos, and I check it out for the first time, and I let you know, do I think it's syllabus-worthy? Is there something about it that makes it worthy of being on the horror movie syllabus? And the movie that we're checking out today is Spell. And Spell was recommended to me by my friend Steve, and he actually did it offline. He didn't actually do it in the comments to one of the videos. He just mentioned it to me because he knows I like occult stuff and folk horror type stuff, and he thought this one might be interesting to me. And Steve knows my taste pretty well. We have a lot of similar tastes. So I'm pretty confident in Steve's recommendations. They're usually pretty good for me. Now, in this case, I had to make sure I was looking at the right Spell, because there are multiple movies named Spell. This is the 2020 version, and so fairly recent, but not to be confused with some of the other versions that are out there. But I did make sure that it was the right version, and that's all I did. I didn't look up any trailers. I didn't look up any information. No Wikipedia, nothing like that. Not till after I watched it. So I went in blind. And did I like it? Did I hate it? Let's find out. Like I said, the movie that we're looking at today is Spell. Spell came out in 2020 and was directed by Mark Tonderai, who is a British/Zimbabwean director, which is an interesting mix. And he is known more for television directing than features, I think, based on his resume. I wasn't too familiar with him, but based on his resume, he has done a few horror movies. He started out with like sex comedy movies, but then he's done horror movies for like the last 4 entries or so on his filmography. So he's a little bit of a veteran at this point. And this was a pandemic era release. It was supposed to come out in theaters in August of 2020, but of course the pandemic, it got released directly to streaming by Paramount, and so it didn't get the full theatrical release. But that's going to be one of the things we touch on as we dig into this. Now first, if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a successful big city attorney who flies his family out to the Appalachians in order to handle the affairs of his late father. And then there's a plane crash, and when he wakes up, he is alone, and he is in the attic of a root woman, a hoodoo practitioner named Miss Eloise, and she does not seem to have the best of his interests at mind, and she's got her own nefarious plans, and he's got to try to figure out what's going on and how to escape, and hijinks abound, of course. I'm going to go ahead and stop there so as to not spoil the movie for you. And this movie is an interesting, strong premise right out the gate. What you've basically got is a hoodoo version of Misery, and I'm here for that. I already like hoodoo, voodoo, stuff like that, that kind of folk tale magic stuff. That's kind of in my wheelhouse. I like that kind of stuff. And so I'm already kind of scratching that itch there. And I love Misery. And so if you're going to do a Misery version with hoodoo magic, I'm down for that. Now, let me be clear. This is not like a Misery knockoff. I think that the movie right off the gate kind of establishes some differences. Now, there are a lot of similarities, right? Like he's hobbled and stuck in this bed. He's recuperating from an accident. There's this woman there who acts kind of nice and polite and kind of big and gregarious, but she's up to no good. But he's not like, a famous writer, and she's not his biggest fan. And he has family members that are also missing, and there are other people helping her keep him hostage. So there's a lot of differences, so that it doesn't feel like a ripoff or anything like that. It just feels like a twist on a premise that I think is a pretty good one. And right off the bat, I like everything about the setup. Like I like the acknowledgement of this character, and how he's kind of well-to-do, and his family's well-to-do, maybe a little spoiled, and he doesn't want to go back to where he's from and his roots. And then they have this plane crash, and then he's stuck in this room. I like the fact that he flies his family out there, and that's what leads to this problem. I like the Appalachian setting, like the rural setting of this is kind of off-putting and unsettling. It shouldn't be, but it is, and it works really, really well, especially with the juxtaposition of his very fancy high lifestyle with the money that he makes and everything like that. It's really a nice juxtaposition. He's unsettled just from where he is, much less like being in trouble, and that works really really well. So the setup is great. I'm in, and it gets to business pretty quickly. So like in Misery, it takes a little while, I think, for James Caan to realize he's actually in a lot of trouble, right? In this movie, it's right out the gate. As soon as he wakes up, he realizes he's not free to leave. Within 20 minutes, the premise is set. There's no pretending that he's safe and they're just nursing him back to health. They are pretty much keeping him prisoner right off the bat. He knows it. He knows he's in trouble, and they get right to business. And it's a lean 90-minute movie, and I think that helps that they get right into the meat and potatoes of the story right away. Now, I mentioned the Appalachian setting, which I think is cool, and the set design is cool as well because you've got this hoodoo practitioner, right? She's a root worker. She has all this magics and stuff like that, and they have all these scenes of her working her magics and doing stuff, creating boogities and stuff, and it's cool. It's really neat. It looks really good. They've also got some really cool gore scenes in this movie. There's one scene in particular that everybody probably remembers with the spike in his foot that he has to pull out. It's kind of hobbling him, and then at one point he has to put it back into his foot so he doesn't get discovered that he's moving around, and that is pretty crazy. That is a really good gore effect, and it's probably one of the more memorable gore scenes in the entire movie, which is not for nothing. Is not saying a whole lot because there is some other cool gore scenes, but they don't. It's not a gory movie. It doesn't litter itself with gore, but when it has gory scenes, they're pretty effective. The effects look pretty good, so they've done a good job there. And this movie is shot well. Like I don't know Tondarai's work. I think he did a Jennifer Lawrence movie, House in the Street or something like that. I'm not familiar with it. I didn't see that movie, so I don't know how good he is behind the camera. But if this movie's any indication, he's pretty good. Like this movie looks pretty. He's got some really great shots, really great use of light, like backlighting things and stuff like that. That look really really good. He's got a great eye, and it really shines through in this movie. And it helps because this movie looking so good helps draw you into it. It really does make for an interesting, compelling setup that you kind of get sucked into, and you're with it. You're with the character. You're with this mystery of what's going on and what these people are about, and the whole hoodoo background and magic of it all is just, to me at least, very fascinating. Now, part of this works also because it's got a pretty strong cast doing some really solid work here. It's an all black cast, but it doesn't really feel like the point of the movie is to have an all black cast. It almost feels kind of incidental. There is some talk about the interaction between different types of black folk, and I think that's fascinating, but they don't dwell on that. That's not really the focus of the movie, and the focus of the movie is on the magic, and the fact that the character and his family are black is almost incidental, and I think that works out rather well for this. I do think it adds a layer to have an all black cast, and I do think they're very good. Everybody in the movie is very good. It's interesting that they didn't dig more into the racial politics of it, and I think maybe for its benefit, because again it wants to stay focused on the mystery and the magic and the horror of it, and it really stays lean, and I think that's a good instinct on it. Now the cast is starting with the Omari Hardwick, who I'm not super familiar with. I guess he was in that show Power that I didn't watch. He's also in Army of the Dead. I have seen that. So he's pretty solid as a lead. He is charismatic. He's good looking. He plays the role really well. I'm on his side. I like him. I want him to succeed. He looks imposing and intimidating, but also frail and injured at the same time, which is not easy to pull off. Like he looks strong, but he also looks like he's kind of broken, and that's pretty impressive. I really liked his performance in this. But the real winner in this is Loretta Devine. Loretta Devine playing the root worker Miss Eloise is wonderful. She is gleefully playing it super big. She's chewing up scenery. She is having a blast with this role, and I'm having a blast watching her. She's doing her own take on an Appalachian black woman's version of Annie Wilkes and doing it really wonderfully. And she is at the same time sweet and creepy, and it works really, really well. I love her. Now, Loretta Devine is typically great. It's you can kind of just count on that, and she's is she delivers here. She delivers here. But she to me is the best part of the movie. And honestly, I could have used a little bit more of her energy, but we'll get into that in just a second. The cast gets rounded out with some other notable, recognizable actors like John Beasley, who you might recognize, and Lorraine Burroughs, and everybody's doing good work here. They are solid to good to great actors in here. I really like what they're doing here, but there are some flaws. Despite the solid bones that this movie has, there are some flaws, and the biggest one is the dialogue. The dialogue is largely very clunky. It's exposition heavy, especially early on, and it's the actors are doing their best to make it work, and they kind of cushion the blow on it, but it is clunky. It is exposition heavy. It is definitely a little tedious, and I guess that was how they felt they had to go in order to set up the premise, set up the backstory of the character and his relationship with Appalachia and his father, and his work and everything, and also to explain the hoodoo magic and the boogies and all that stuff. They really couldn't think of a better way to inform the audience of what was going on than to just literally say it to them. And it is what it is. Like, I do think you need this information. I do think you need to know the background of this. Like, I'm not a hoodoo expert or anything like that, so I was thankful to have the background on some of the stuff like mojo bags and stuff like. Although I didn't know what a mojo bag is, but like, some of this stuff is it's nice to have it spelled out to me, because I wouldn't know it otherwise. I just wish it could have been done a little bit more elegantly. So that's a script writing ding I have to give it on that. It is what it is. Like, it could have been tighter on that. It's not a deal breaker. It just it could have been tighter. Also, there are some themes introduced in this movie that I don't feel get fully resolved or don't really come back in any meaningful way. There's some stuff about this guy's background and his past, and kind of who he is as a person that, I mean, I guess you could make the argument, you could help the movie out and say that based on what happens in the movie, there is a change, but I don't think it's very clear. And I'm not mad at that. It's just kind of interesting that there are some things that get set up that don't feel like they're fully resolved. They don't feel like they land all that much. But again, not a big deal breaker. It doesn't make me mad. It doesn't, like, make me dissatisfied with the movie, but it is something that's there and something I have to mention. Now, the other thing about this is it plays it pretty much straight. Everything is pretty straight here, and I appreciate that. I wanted it to be straight, but it might not have hurt to lean into the camp a little bit more, because Loretta Devine is doing this. Loretta Devine is playing it big and kind of campy and kind of like gleefully cackly evil, and she's great, and I love her in it. And I kind of wanted more from that, like more of that in the movie. I would have liked to have seen it get a little bit more ridiculous. It does have some moments of like kind of ludicrousness, but for the most part, it plays it very straight. Now, again, I don't think it's necessarily bad that it's playing it straight. I really like Loretta Devine. I kind of like to see the whole tone of the movie kind of mirror a little bit more of her energy. But that is, again, a minor nitpick in what is honestly pretty solid work from everybody. They don't have to play it big and campy like she does. And in fact, maybe it makes her stand out a little bit more that they don't. So overall, the movie's doing pretty solid work. Like, it's interesting because they were going to give this a theatrical release. I think I mentioned that earlier, that, it was Paramount Pictures, and they were going to release this theatrically. And then thanks to the pandemic, they decided to yank the theatrical release and release it on streaming. And they did that, but it doesn't feel like a streaming movie. And there's that feel of streaming movies that kind of feel like, less than, and it doesn't have that feel, again, probably because it was supposed to be released theatrically. And I wonder if it was being shot during the pandemic as well, and I wonder if that was a limitation on them as well. But it doesn't look like it. There doesn't seem to be anything there, any indication that this is a pandemic hampered movie. Everything's pretty solid, right? Some things really shine, some things a little bit clunky, but overall it's a solid movie. But is it solid enough to be on the syllabus? Let's find out. So, is 2020's spell syllabus worthy? No, I think it's gonna miss the mark for syllabus worthiness. I think it's just a little too middle of the road of a movie for me. Like, it's solid, it's a good enough time, but there's nothing in there that stands out enough, not even Loretta Devine, to really kind of put it over the top to get on the syllabus. And not for nothing, but the subgenres that it would qualify, like things like religion or occult or folklore, they have some, lots of bangers in them. There's just some really great movies in those subgenres. So it would be hard for Spell to muscle its way in amongst those heavyweights. It really would. It's a perfectly fine movie. It's solid. It's good. I enjoyed it. But there's nothing about it that's super noteworthy. There's nothing about it that really makes it stand out. And not for nothing, but like, hardly anybody seems to talk about it. There's very minimal reputation. This movie, it does have an IM or a Wikipedia page, and it does have a little bit of reviews and stuff like that. They're pretty middling reviews, to be honest with you. But there's not a lot of buzz about this. People don't talk about this in any kind of revered or kind of notorious fashion, right? I think like when I go on like Reddit and see people talking about it, and the most you see is people kind of talking a little bit about, is it worth the time, and then is it like, I think that nail scene, that spike scene, is probably the thing that gets the most recognition, and rightfully so. But it doesn't seem like it made that much of an impact on the horror community. So I took that into consideration as well. It is a perfectly good movie. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. I think Loretta Devine steals the show. I think that the gore is good. I think that the magic stuff is good. I like the boogities. I like all that stuff. I think it's super cool. It's kind of for me. So Steve knows me well enough. He kind of figured out that's something I would like. I can't in good conscience put it on the syllabus. It's definitely worth your time to check out. It's just not syllabus worthy. It doesn't reach that level. But that's not necessarily a death knell. It's definitely worth it to check out. So I'd recommend it, but I wouldn't put it on the syllabus. So that's my thoughts on Spell from 2020. Like I said, it's fun. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I would maybe watch it again. I'm not in a hurry to watch it again, but it is not something that's going to stand the test of time and be on the syllabus as something that's going to be a classic. It's just not. It's a perfectly fine way to spend 90 minutes. It's a nice lean and tight 90 minutes, but it's not going to be something that changes your life or becomes your new favorite movie. It's just not. So that's where we're at on that one. And now where we're at is horror trivia pursuit time. So I'm going to read a question off a horror trivia pursuit card live on camera, and I'm going to try to answer it and hopefully not get it wrong. And we're going to look at the paranormal category, the supernatural category, because, we're talking about like hoodoo magic and stuff like that. So here's our question. Who directed 1976's Carrie? Look, I know this one. I know this one pretty well. The only way this would have been a confusing one is if they wouldn't have given the year of which Carrie, because there are multiple Carries out there. There are at least 3 versions off the top of my head. Plus, our man Mike Flanagan is doing a TV series of Carrie coming out in the near future, which I'm pretty excited about because it's the Flan Man and I love him. Flan Man is not the answer to this question, obviously, but I do know the answer to this question. This is a director I actually like very much. We did talk about Carrie on the channel. Obviously, it's a classic. It's a Stephen King classic, one of the best Stephen King movies ever. And it's, to see Spacek giving a career performance, Piper Laurie giving an amazing performance. It's just great. And if you haven't seen it, you should absolutely check it out. And this director, it's funny because if you know this director's reputation and kind of what he's known for, you don't necessarily think of Carrie. And that's my clue to you, is that you wouldn't necessarily think of Carrie coming from this director if you know this director. And that's my one clue I'm going to give you. But it is masterful work. He does wonderful work in this movie, and he gets great performances out of everybody, and he does some stuff that, well, I'm not going to say that because I think that's too much of a clue maybe. So I'll go ahead and just stop there. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my little diatribe, and I'm going to let you guys lock in your answer. I locked in my answer. I know this one. 100% I know this one. But lock in your answer. Got it? Good. Okay. I'm going to answer Brian De Palma. Brian De Palma is the director of Carrie. Just double check the card. Brian De Palma. Yes. So De Palma is known as kind of like a Hitchcock aficionado. He likes his Hitchcock homages, and he loves a good split screen, which he does do in Carrie. That's why I didn't want to say that, because he does it in Carrie, but he's kind of known for doing split screen stuff. And he does a lot of the Hitchcock thriller stuff, erotic thriller stuff, a little bit sleazy and stuff like that. And Carrie's not really any of those things. So it's a little odd. You don't think of Carrie when you think of Brian De Palma, but it is one of his earlier movies, and it's great. And I love me some De Palma, and I love me some Carrie. So did you get that one right? Did you know that one? And if you didn't get it right, what did you guess? Did you guess something else? Did you guess anything funny? Because I love a funny wrong answer. Let me know in the comments below. But that's going to do it for this week's video. Thank you for hanging out till the end. Thank you for the recommendation, Steve. Thank you all for your recommendations. I'm making a list, and I'm going through them, and I'm having a lot of fun. You guys keep giving me movies that I like. Even if they don't always make it on the syllabus, I'm enjoying them. So keep them coming. And until next week, I'm just going to say, class dismissed.